Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, the Winnipeg Jets' third straight loss. The first time this season they've lost three straight, and I will tell you this. I know that there was a lot of doomsayers out there in the chat room who have been talking about trades being made a long time ago to avoid a scenario in which the Jets fall out of playoff contention. Now, they sit in second place in the Central Division, although I've noticed that their winning percentage is now lower than the two teams below them in the standings from the Central Division. Not good that they lose to the Minnesota Wild on a night they came in 3 points ahead of the Wild. The Wild have a game in hand, 1 point back now, so the Wild are actually ahead of the Jets when it comes to winning percentage, as are the Colorado Avalanche, even though the Colorado Avalanche lost tonight to the Arizona Coyotes. So there's a lot of people out there who think that the sky is falling, and fair enough. I mean, they've lost 4 of their last 6 games. That's not the kind of record that's going to get you into the playoffs typically. If you want to sound the alarm bells, people can do that. I'm not at the stage where that's happening yet. I will say this. I went through, as I was going through the comments for the Lamplighter comments from the last game. I noticed I opened in that game before Christmas, feels like a long time ago, against the Washington Capitals with kind of the idea that it's time to drop the excuses. And boy, oh boy, did the excuse makers out there take offense to that. I noticed there was a lot of anger there. I don't know how much more clearly I could put it. Like, you take a look at the Washington Capitals team, they are just as injured, if not more injured, than the Winnipeg Jets, and they're making it work. If you're telling me that the Jets are in a worse situation than they are with the injury ward, I'm going to tell you you're wrong, period. They lost, in my opinion, in the last game. Those who want to use that excuse and kind of not take a look at what's happening to the Winnipeg Jets, go ahead and do that. But I think you're missing the point of maybe where the Winnipeg Jets are right now. But that said, as I go against the people who made the excuses in the last game, I'll say this. I've got time for that excuse in this game. Why? Well, because the Minnesota Wild are a fairly healthy team, far more so than the Winnipeg Jets. And I know a lot of people are talking about it in the chat room here, suggesting that the Jets are an AHL team versus an NHL team. I've got a lot more time for that argument. If you want to bring the injuries excuse into what's happening to the Jets right now, feel free to bring it into this game. I'm not going to have a problem with that. Just have enough, be discerning enough to realize when you're running into another team that has the same issues, and at least acknowledge it. Don't just use this as a blanket excuse to try and get out of what's happening here right now, because I think one of the things that does need to be talked about, and their head coach talked about it after the game, the Jets' ability to pressure teams has gone missing. Entirely missing. And the hallmark of their success earlier this season was their ability to go force turnovers in the neutral zone, in the opposition zone. That didn't happen here tonight. The Minnesota Wild basically were walking through the neutral zone into the Jets, and on the times that the Jets did get any kind of pressure down on them, they were simply flipping the puck into the neutral zone, skating into it, and relieving the pressure that way. It is missing right now. It was missing against Washington for the most part after some opportunistic goals early against the Boston Bruins. It was missing for the majority of that game. I know in that game, in the Washington game, they made a late push. But to me, there's an issue right now with the Winnipeg Jets and the way that they are playing Rick Bowness' system. And Rick Bowness will tell you right now that the details aren't right. The Winnipeg Jets are not playing the pressure game the way they're supposed to be playing it. And here's the problem. When you play the pressure game, when it's all about getting up on a team and stopping them before they start, and you fail to do that, then you are down ice. And the other team has the advantage getting up ice because you went to try and stop them and it didn't work. That's, in my mind, the problem with the Winnipeg Jets right now. So does some of that have to do with the personnel that are rolling in here? Rick Bowness isn't going to use that excuse. He kind of fought against the idea of that excuse, but I would suggest you have to have really good players to be able to pull off that system. The Jets had that earlier this year. There's enough holes in the lineup that I am convinced fully the Jets, I'm not sure they're capable of playing that pressure style of game with the personnel that they have right now. So I'm okay with that excuse on a night like tonight. Not a night where the Jets are playing another team that is just as equally beat up and people want to bury their heads in the sand for that. I'm not going to go down that road, but I will say this tonight. The Winnipeg Jets were not nearly as primed to be successful tonight with their lineup as the Minnesota Wild were. I will go there. There's something to be said about trying to find a way to get through this. There's a lot of other teams in the league. The Colorado Avalanche have dug just as deep into the players out of the AHL and are behind the Jets in the standings, but have a higher winning percentage. They've been dealing with that for a lot longer than the Jets are. So some teams are making it work. And, if we want to get into the conversation of, do we need to make trades, or the Jets need to make trades to get through this? It's a conversation we can have. I'm open to it. I will say this: Washington hasn't done it. Colorado hasn't done it. A lot of the teams that have been really beat up, you haven't seen them going out on the trade wire to try and fix this problem. But I'm okay to suggest maybe the Winnipeg Jets are different. Maybe we should have that conversation. But I just want to get into the idea that I think just blanket saying the Jets don't have the right guys right now, there's not an issue. I thought Brendan Dillon said something really interesting about the Jets being a measuring stick team, and they're not surprising anybody anymore. And I think in there's a lot of truth and a lot of answers in what the Winnipeg Jets are running into this month. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with their injuries or their schedule or all the other excuses being trotted out over and over again. That's my take on this game early. Let's bring in Ken to get his take. The man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, before we get started here, the Cat in the Hat says, come on, Sean, the Avalanche get calls. The reffing sucked and they should be fired. We pay the same money to sit in the seats and deserve good refs. This is just more to the point that I'm talking about here. There was a missed call in this game here tonight. No doubt about that. But if you feel like you want to point to the refs and say that the Jets lost this game here tonight on a call that was missed with about 2 minutes left in the game, and you're going to go and sleep soundly and say the Jets won that, the Jets had that game, they were primed for a miracle comeback if not for the refs. If that's what you need to rest on, well then so be it. I'm not in that position. I think that there has to be answers. There has to be questions dug into. We dug into those with Rick Bowness. He's saying it. Their systems are not right. Their details are not right. There's things the Jets can be doing better than sitting around and saying everything would be fine if not for the refs or if not for this excuse or that excuse. The reason I hate excuses is they stand in the way of trying to fix the problem. They lead to complacency. I don't like it. And trying to say that the Jets lost this game tonight because of the refs, I think is a sad sack excuse to try and figure out what's going on with the Jets. That's, again, my take. Ken, we're interested in getting your take on what you saw go down here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a fairly typical first game out of the break type of effort in the first period. Jets were sluggish, and it cost them on a couple of goals. Connor Hellebuyck is the backbone of this team, but we saw him chatting with Wade Flaherty after the game. I mean, I would say he's probably disappointed with first the Jared Spurgeon goal that kind of leaked through, and then the Matt Zuccarello wrister through the 5-hole. I mean, it's a good shot by a good player on a nice drop pass by Kirill Kaprizov. But that's one that, Connor, what would you say, 95, or he stops that shot 95 to 98 times out of 100 or so, Sean? I mean, wouldn't you say?
Oh, you know what? This was one of those nights where, and I hate using the line, Connor Hellebuyck would like that one back. Every goalie wants every goal.
No, but like, It trickled through the wickets. I mean, like, that's one that he stops. Like,
no, and this is what I'm saying. I hate that line, and I was thinking of tweeting it, and I was like, it's a stupid line. Every goalie wants every goal back, right? But I will say this: like, it's not often I would use that line for Connor Hellebuyck, because it's not often that Connor Hellebuyck lets in goals that you're thinking he should have had that one. The first two goals of this game, I thought Connor Hellebuyck should have had.
Yeah, and the third one he had absolutely zero chance. I mean, people saying Connor was terrible. I mean, that's also not accurate. I mean, he flubbed a couple saves that he should have had. I mean, he still only gave up. He gave up 3 goals, and the Jets found no way to beat Philip Gustafson, who has done a nice job. I mean, he's basically. No one's going to say it publicly, but right now he's stolen the number 1 job away from Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if there's any other way of saying that. And sorry, I don't want to go on a crazy rant of this trip to the buffet. Marc-Andre Fleury has made a big impact on this Wild team, even though he's not playing at an elite level right now. He's a great teammate. He's got a great attitude. And this morning, Sean, after the morning skate on a day that he wasn't playing, he spent at least 10 minutes signing autographs for a group of a young hockey team from Regina that's playing in a tournament. That just tells you all you need to know. It's got nothing to do with his on-ice play, but this is a guy who loves hockey. He takes his responsibility seriously, and I love seeing that. He provided a thrill for a group of kids that were playing in this tournament that they'll never forget, Sean. I mean, we've all had these moments when we were teenagers and kids. I mean, those guys are Fleury fans for life. Fleury even signed a Vegas Golden Knights jersey. Anyways, that's all for that aside, but the Jets were not good enough today. Their top line, I liked. I know some people in the chat room saying they didn't like the top line. I disagree completely. I mean, top line for me generated tons of offense. 5 shots on goal for Scheifele, 5 for Kyle Connor, and a beautiful goal by Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, I don't know if people just expected the power hour to deliver 5 goals. I mean, I thought that line was fine. They got out against teams or lines lower in the lineup at times. Good job by Rick Bowness on that front. I thought the Adam Lowry line did a very good job for the most part. I mean, people look at the stats and say, "Oh well, goal for Zuccarello, assist for Zuccarello, Kaprizov assist, 2 assists for Sam Steele." But actually, first one was power play goal. Second one, the Lowry line was not on the ice. So I mean, they did their job. The the Dubois Scheifele Connor line, they won their matchup. They won it 1-0. I mean, Lowry's line was solid. The even strength goal by Gaudreau, Lowry was on the ice, but that's because Zuccarello had just come out of the penalty box. So to me, that wasn't a real issue for their line. It was an absolutely perfect pass by Zuccarello. And Sean, you pointed out to me perfectly. The reason why Kyle Capobianco had to slide to try to break up the pass, Pierre-Luc Dubois made an aggressive and probably unnecessary pinch at the defensive blue line. So,
Pionk.
Sorry, Pionk. Sorry.
Yeah.
Who did I say?
You said Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Sorry, it was Pionk, obviously, that made that play.
It was Pionk. So it's interesting. Let's just go down there quick, because I know this was a topic of conversation last time. I had a real eye on Neil Pionk tonight, because clearly he's starting to become a very polarizing player, right? And so I wanted to kind of watch him and so there's a couple plays earlier on in the game where he's trying to get activated. So we talked about this last time. I said his game looks good when he's activating. I thought he tried to do that tonight. The one thing about Josh Morrissey is it seems like, I'll say this is what Josh is really good at. He's very good at taking and entirely cleaning up his defensive responsibilities without risk involved in his game until he cleans up those responsibilities, and then he activates. That was one of those times that I thought that Neil Pionk jumped up and tried to make something happen, but the risk was not worth the reward. And it was one of those situations where it was a really good player in Zuccarello. Zuccarello had the positioning on the puck, and Pionk puts himself in a situation where he either wins that puck and heads up the ice the other way, basically with 4 Wild players back, or he turns it over and Zuccarello goes the other way, which gives the opportunity for the 2-on-1 that happens. I mean, to me, that's a bad read. That's a bad read all day long. So all the people out there who are upset with the way Neil Pionk is playing, and I know some people have already been saying so in our chat room, that's fodder for those people, because that again is a bad play at a bad, tough time of the game. The Jets have a little bit of momentum going because they've got the power play going. We've heard this before. The power play, you don't need to score on it for it to be a momentum builder. The penalty kill, if you can kill a penalty, it can be a momentum killer, and that's kind of what you have to have the eye towards. And I think teams that don't understand that. I don't want to say that, but I think that there's a sense when you play hockey I'm sure it was like that when you played, Ken. It was like that. There's this sense that when the clock is winding down on the power play, you kind of want to get something done before that player gets out of the box, right? So you're trying to squeeze the last of the juice out of the orange in that situation. The idea that he was trying to squeeze all the juice out of the orange, turn that puck over, get up for one last thing, catch Zuccarello back on the wrong side of the ice, and it goes the other way, and it's just too risky of a play. And as soon as it happened, I think I was starting to text you. My thumbs were already working on that text before the puck was in the back of the net because you could see where it was going. But on a night like tonight, where Rick Bowness really did talk about the Jets falling in a hole early really kind of took away their ability to pressure that team, and I agree with him 100%. Mistakes like that end up in the back of your net are the kind of things that kill you before you can even get going, and no doubt I thought that happened with Neil Pionk.
Yeah, no doubt. Neil Pionk had a little stretch where he kind of got his game back in order, but right now it's not where it needs to be. I mean, we were watching him very closely. I mean, Sean, people forget that he was the Jets' best defenseman for 1 year for sure, and I would even say probably a second season, but he's going, ever since last December, the body of work has not been kind for the most part for Neil Pionk. I mean, I agree with you. I thought he had some nice activations. He had a couple of really nice plays. I would say that the one really nice, he kind of made that backhand backdoor to Scheifele that he batted out of the air, and it hit Gustafsson in the mask. He didn't make the save on it, and people can say, oh, that's a prayer play by Pionk, but he saw an opening and he got the pass through. But the thing to me that is concerning, Sean, there's an issue with his skating right now. His forward skating is all right, but his backward skating, something is happening. And there, T. Will saying, I'm starting to think Spezza may have need Pionk's soul out of his body. I know he's exaggerating a bit, but his play has deteriorated since that time. And he had a good start to last year until that happened. So, anyways, I mean, John Chan mentioning Ville Heinola. I mean, we'll definitely get into Heinola in a minute, but Neil Pionk, I said this a few times now, Sean. Neil Pionk is one of the Jets' highest paid defensemen. He is in their top four. He played nearly 23 minutes tonight. He was on for 2 even strength goals against. He was a little bit more involved. 2 shots, 4 attempts, 2 hits, 3 takeaways, 1 blocked shot. But I didn't think he had a good game again. He didn't have a strong game. I see no issue with his effort. His effort is fine. He plays hard. But right now I think his decision making is a bit off. And it's something that needs to improve because the Jets need him to be playing at an elite level. Josh Morrissey is playing... they need Neil Pionk to play at an above-average level. Right now, Josh Morrissey is playing at an elite level. The Jets need both Morrissey and Pionk to be playing well at the same time, especially with what's happening up front with the number of injuries and the number of players out of the lineup. So, right now, mediocre or worse is not good enough for the Winnipeg Jets from Neil Pionk. He needs to be better. Whether that's finding him, the pairing with Brendan Dillon has had some rough patches. I mean, I've talked about this. I think Ville Heinola will be back in against the Vancouver Canucks. I can't know that for sure. But what I do think is Heinola with Brendan Dillon and Dylan Sandberg with Neil Pionk, I think, is sort of the way that they're going to go for a little bit of time here. In terms of the Jets offensively, I thought David Gustafsson had a couple nice bursts. I thought he was a little bit better today. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby had some nice shifts. Kevin Stenlund was going at times.
I like
expected more.
I like this one. We should get into that, but before we do get into that, I just a couple things here. Cat in the hat. If Austin Matthews gets a high stick like that, it would be national news on Sportsnet. Or Austin Matthews takes a high stick, and our Sportsnet guys can't take a stand. Come on, man. I don't think you understand my role as a journalist. It's not my job to go out and advocate. You've already heard me say this tonight. That was a missed call. It's an obvious missed call. It's ridiculous.
But it didn't cost them the game. I mean, like you said, yeah, I mean, come on, people. Let's get the Jets
beyond
colored glasses off here.
Exactly. It's not my job to go out and advocate and do these kind of things. And I get it. You're a fan. You're really passionate. You're clearly passionate about this because you're fired up and you think it costs the Jets the game. That's the kind of, I get as a fan. You sit there and you're probably throwing stuff at the TV and whatever. I'm saying, I said it right off the bat, this is clearly a missed call. I don't know what the ref was doing. I was sitting beside Christian O'Mell from CJOB, and I was like, what is he calling? Is he trying to suggest that was someone else's stick? I was way up in the press box on the other side of the ice, and I could see that wasn't a Jets player's stick. That's a grossly missed call.
Yeah.
But Cat in the Hat, this isn't what we do. It's not my job to go jump on a train and start a campaign and be like, justice for Kyle Connor. Like, this isn't how it works. I'll call it like it is. It was a bad call. It was a missed call. But I don't know what you think our job is here. That, like, I'm not going to go home and make a flag and start waving it at Portage and Maine tomorrow. Justice for Kyle Connor after a situation like that. That's not our job. That's not how this works. We're here to talk about the game and talk about what we saw. What we saw was clearly a missed call.
Yeah, and it's double minor. It draws blood. I mean, that's something where the game could change, but the Jets' execution was with the. And let's get into that, Sean. You asked Rick Bowness. Okay, sorry.
Remember what you were going to say. I need your lamplighter tonight, and I want to say, Kenny, you're looking sharp. I'm debuting a number from Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi here tonight. Check out that tie combo. Knocking it out of the park, as always, our main guy, Frankie and the boys. If you want to look like Kenny and Renny, head on down. I always do head on down to Vittorio Rossi at Gordon Avenue. Go tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. Love those guys. Love being down there. They make you look like $1 million. Thanks to that. Kenny, let's get to the lamplighter.
Yeah, honorable mention to the great pass by Zuccarello on the backdoor tap to Frederick Goodrow. But to me, it's Kyle Connor finding Pierre-Luc Dubois. Dubois absolutely turnstiles Jonas Brodin, who is a solid top four defender, but he got around him. He took the pass on his backhand, took a step, got inside position, then stuffed the puck with the great shot. I mean, I thought this was just an exceptional play by Pierre-Luc Dubois, 16th of the season. Only Mark Scheifele has more on the Winnipeg Jets this season. It was an impressive setup, and also the play started by Josh Morrissey finding Connor through the neutral zone. Connor gets the zone entry, gets it out wide, kicks it out wide, and Dubois makes an exceptional play to get to the middle and get to that post, and he scores just an absolute beauty. That's why I've chosen it as our lamplighter of the game.
Awesome job. That was a good one. Great goal. I mean, it was one of those situations where he fires it off the post, and I'm thinking, man, did he get robbed? But he gets so much wood on that shot. It bounced off the post, off the goalie's back, and in the back of the net in a hurry like that. Like, you don't see that often. The reason you don't is you're not realizing how much velocity is on that shot to come off the post in that manner, hit the post, that square, bounce back, hit the goalie. Because I was thinking about, like, how often that seems to happen to Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck seems to, I feel like Connor Hellebuyck stops a lot of those, but one of the things about that is, like, when you've got a shot with that much pepper on it, I just don't think that you have the opportunity to stop that. So that's one of those things where, hey, maybe all he gave Pierre-Luc Dubois was the post on that play, but in the end, if you can shoot it that hard with that kind of velocity, that's all you need. That's Kenny's lamplighter. I agree with him. Great job on that. If you're interested in getting a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale of your own, just leave your lamplighter of the game, your goal of the game, in our comments section, or later on, if you're watching it on YouTube, throw it into the chat there, or the comments there, and you are entered to win your very own frosty, delicious pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. If you can't wait to win one on the Kenny and Renny show here, then just head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them at their taproom 1290 Keniston. Absolutely great stuff there. We've talked about the pizza. I think we've done a pretty good job. I'm getting a lot of Lamplighter winners, Kenny, who are telling me they went down there and they tried the pizza. I hope they do that, because you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't. I can tell you this, Kenny. The family told me, because I said I've been getting out there a lot. We went with John Liu and the TSN people. I've been there 4 times, I think, in the last 3 weeks, and the family has told me that we're going there again before the new year. So we're going to make it happen.
There you go.
Down there. But hey, it's time to announce the lamplighter from the last show, and the winner is long-time listener, first-time winner, Kim Sawchuk wins. So Kim, you are officially on the clock now. You got a couple days here. Just direct
Kim's in the chat room. She's ready.
In the chat room. direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, which I assume is Kim Sawchuk, and an email where I can send you your voucher, and you will have your frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale if you do just that. Ken, give me your Johnston Group got you covered play.
You know what? For me, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is a guy who has had an interesting stretch of time here. I really liked his game today. Over 13 minutes. I know that Kevin Stenlund was a guy that Rick Bowness pointed out after the game, but I liked Axel Jonsson-Fjällby's game. He did a really nice job of drawing a minor against Matt Zuccarello by getting into the slot. He picked up a pass as the trailer. I think it was from Neil Pionk. Cut in. It did not result in a goal, but it resulted in a power play. It just seemed to me, Sean, like he was making things happen on a night where not a whole lot went well for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to toss that out to Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, who, I mean, hey, this is a guy, guess what? This is a guy who's fighting to stay in the lineup. Rick Bowness said today Cole Perfetti will be out for 7 to 10 days. Saku Menelainen will still be out for a week. But when those two guys are back, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is fighting to stay in the lineup, and today he fought hard and showed what he can do when he's playing at his best. So for me, that ability to draw that minor penalty is what I'm choosing as the We've Got You Covered play of the game, sponsored by the OGs from the Johnston Group.
Well, I got to tell you, I am going to hand mine over to Forsberg. And I just think that there's the Scheifele picking the cross ice pass out of the air. I know that kind of goes off his helmet, but there was that one other, a couple other saves where he dove across the crease.
Sure.
It's funny because this is a night where, for the most part, I think that the Minnesota Wild were the better of the two teams, but it's also one of those nights where the opportunism of the Winnipeg Jets, I thought, could have pulled this game out of the hat. A couple of those goals go the other way, and I think it's a little bit of a different situation. I do think that Rick Bowness touched on this. We can get into that later, but I do think that the Minnesota Wild, for the most part, got a lead and were content to sit on that lead and just try and frustrate the Jets, which I think they did. I mean, it worked out that way, but a couple of those goals go in. Phil Gustafson doesn't stop a couple of those, and it's an entirely different situation out there. So I think I know it's not for the Jets, but I give him credit for the got you covered play of the game, because no doubt he had the Minnesota Wild covered on this night. You were talking about our Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. You won't find two businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teladoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. Okay, let's dive into this. There was a good comment here I wanted to bring up earlier on. Where did we have this? Okay, Bob's video says, I think Dubois should go back to the second line. Putting all our eggs in one basket isn't working. What did you think of the all the eggs in one basket approach, Ken?
I love it personally, and not just because Rick did it. You know this. You have the text evidence. I've been calling for this for several games. Yep. We did see it a little bit in the third period, one shift in the second, and then some third period shifts against the Washington Capitals. And Bob's videos, Bob, just so that you know, the Dubois goal was not a power play goal. The Jets were 0 for 2 on the power play. That was a 5-on-5 goal, and a lot of the shots the Jets had from their top line were from the top line at even strength.
Okay, go. Sorry, whenever I can bring in a viewer question, I want to do this. So Joe from Winnipeg says, why not split all three of those players across three lines? Take it, Ken.
Sorry, I mean, we saw this approach, and a variation of this approach. We saw this in the Boston game and then part of the Washington game. Mark Scheifele was playing with Morgan Barron and Carson Kuhlman. And yes, Morgan Barron has had a little bit of success playing up in the lineup before, including that game in Montreal last year. But with all due respect to Carson Kuhlman, who I actually thought played pretty well today, he's not a first-line player or a second-line player. I mean, yes, I understand why he was put there to do some of the dirty work, the tenacity, but I don't think we've watched Mark Scheifele when he's not playing with players that are in the upper end skill range in terms of his peers. And I know that Kuhlman and Morgan Barron have very important skills, but they're not as skilled when it comes to the offensive side of the game. Morgan Barron is doing an excellent job on the checking line. And when he went back with Adam Lowry, he had more success again. I have no problem with them loading up one line right now. The Jets need the Adam Lowry's line was pretty good at even strength against one of the better lines in hockey in terms of Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. They're not the best line in hockey. They are one of, let's say, they're in the top 5 when they're rolling. And maybe you can say, well, Sam Steele's not a top line player either. But right now, Sam Steele's contributing at 2 assists tonight. I don't like the spreading it over 3-line approach. We've talked about this all year long. Adam Lowry is generating enough for a third line or a checking line player. His line mates at times have done enough, but right now they're not piling up points. So do I understand the 3-line approach and balance? Yes. But Kyle Connor, we've seen this. Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois, when they're together, they work well together. Whether it's Yevgeny Svechnikov last year, Michael Asimon at times this year, I like the fact that Mark Scheifele is being tried there. I think Mark Scheifele at times can benefit from playing on the wing. It limits his defensive responsibilities, even though we know he's improved in that area. I like them playing together because I think they can generate. I mean, they generated enough opportunities, but then they still need their secondary and complementary players and scorers to produce a little bit. So, Adam Lowry gets a shorthanded breakaway. He beats the goaltender, but he doesn't beat the post. If Adam Lowry scores, then the complementary scoring is there. I mean, I don't know why it didn't work, obviously. Well, the top line was great for the Jets at times. Did they get 5 goals? No. Did they get 2 goals? No. But they were the most effective line at 5-on-5. The Lowry line had a chance. Lowry had a great shorthanded chance, like I said. Stenlund's line generated a little bit. I thought Gustafsson had a couple of chances. Right now, they're not crisp enough. And Sean, I want to dig into this. I mean, we brought up that question. I hope I did my best to answer it. I want to get into your question to Rick Bowness. Right now, when the Jets were at their most effective, they were very, creating chaos on the forecheck. So they're not able to do that right now because they're not in on the forecheck. And when you're not in on the forecheck, the puck gets moving north or south against the Jets, right? I mean, right now they're not doing a good enough job of applying pressure. Other teams are breaking out easily. They're getting through the neutral zone with speed. And the other part, too, on one of the earlier goals, Jets didn't get the puck deep, and that is critical for them right now. People can say, oh, well, Hellebuck should have had it. Well, if the puck gets deep, there's no transition play on that second goal by Matt Zuccarello, right? That puck gets in deep, there's no rush, there's no drop pass, there's no shot through the 5-hole. So the Jets are not doing a good enough job in the detail work of their game, right? And so to me, it's not reffing, it's not goaltending, it's not anything else. If you want to say it's their power play going 0 for 2, by all means. The other team scored 1 for 1. Jets got outscored in the special teams battle, but they also had a shorthanded breakaway that nearly went in. So that's not a huge difference for me. But to me, right now, the Jets' details are not good enough. And then I also want to get into more of what you said in the opening about what Brendan Dillon said. About the Jets no longer catching people by surprise.
Yes, that to me is the story. I'm going to set this up for the people. That to me is the biggest kind of piece of information, I think, that relates to what we've been talking about in the last little while about how a team like the Washington Capitals came rolling into town, played the Jets extremely well, and I said, this is the video now that other teams are going to come in and say, this is what they did to succeed against this team. That's how we have to play as well. I think this is what I was getting at. To hear it come out of Brendan Dillon's mouth, I think was extremely interesting. I'll get into a question that I asked Rick Bowness based on this, but I just wanted to set it up. I think that this may be the most pressing issue that the Jets have to face going forward, whether they're healthy or not. Take it away.
Sorry, which part?
Well, just the entire thing. You were starting. I interrupted your point, but you
No,
brought
that's
up
okay.
Brendan Dillon talking about, them not catching teams by surprise. Why is that important?
Well, it's important because he said the Jets are now the measuring stick for others. So what we've been talking about, the Jets being the hunted and not the hunter. Well, Brendan Dillon's point is very solid to me. This is what he said. I mean, every team the rest of the way, we're a measuring stick for teams with the way we've played through these first 35 games. We can't expect to surprise teams anymore. They're coming here knowing what to expect, playing their best hockey. We just can't be surprised at that, especially come next game, where the Vancouver Canucks are going to roll into town. We've talked a lot about their season, and it's been very up and down. We know that, but the Jets can't afford to be losing games to the Vancouver Canucks. You talked about 4-6, Sean. Jets have lost 6 of 9 in this last stretch here. That's a big number for a team that, less than 2 weeks ago had the best winning percentage in the entire Western Conference, right? So, Vancouver won again tonight. Yeah, so for all we've been talking about Vancouver's struggles, they're not just going to roll over. I mean, you want to talk about issues for teams. Vancouver's been rolling without Thatcher Demko. They're rolling with Spencer Martin. I mean, so imagine the Jets rolling with David Riddick, for example. I mean, they're without their number one goaltender. So most teams are dealing with some issues. In terms of what Dylan said, I love that he said it. I love it. That's what I posted the link to my story. I mean, that's a big part of the equation now, Sean. I mean, what we know is, the other teams are playing backups against the Jets earlier. Right now, teams know they're going to have to play well to beat the Jets, even though we know that some of those backups have had success against the Jets. I mean, that's because a lot of teams have 2 really good goalies. Anyways, I think it was a great point by Dylan. It wasn't an excuse. It was an explanation. And I love the fact that the Jets realized that, guess what? Hey, guess what? When you've been rolling in the top, of the conference, teams are fired up to play you. They don't want to get embarrassed. They want to play hard. And when other teams give you their best, you're going to have to give them your best also. And if you don't, there's an issue. That's how a team loses, 3 in a row, 4 of 6, 6 of 9. I mean, we've said this for a long time, Sean. We go back to the end of November when the Jets were playing great. And I think that was like the first time they kind of went into first place and overtook Dallas momentarily, right? So what happened since then? We said we're going to learn a ton about the Winnipeg Jets in December. I mean, we are learning a lot about the Jets. Some people, like you said, are freaking out. Well, if I had told you the Jets were going to be 21-13-1 on December 27th, how would you feel about that? Sorry, and BA split. I know that Thatcher Demko is having a tough year. The point is, Vancouver is playing with a backup in Spencer Martin. That's a different scenario than playing with a Vezina candidate like Connor Hellebuck. My point is simply that the Jets have had high-level goaltending, which is one of the reasons they got off to a great start. But Thatcher Demko, I understand he's not playing well. I wasn't saying it's an apples-to-apples comparison. I'm just telling you that other teams are playing without important players. That is simply all I was saying. In terms of Tony DeAngelo, absolutely not. The Jets are not trading for Tony DeAngelo. The Jets have been getting plenty of offense from their defense. Tony DeAngelo is not a defensive player. He is a defensive liability. So to me, that is not a fit for the Winnipeg Jets. And anyways, that's neither here nor there. Bob's videos. Helly has not been Vezina caliber his last few games. Well, he's been one of the best goalies in the NHL. Like, check the receipts on that. I mean, if people don't think Connor Hellebuck is playing well, they got to wake up. I'm sorry. Connor Hellebuck has been one of the best goalies in the National Hockey League this year. Was he good in the first period today? No. Was he great against Boston? I thought he was fine against Boston, right? I mean, he wasn't the reason they lost the game. It was a bad break on the first one, and the second one's a power play goal backdoor tap-in. I mean, come on now. Not good the last couple games here. Come on, folks. Connor Hellebuyck's not going to give up 0 every night. That's just not the way it works with goaltending, even the best goaltenders in the NHL.
Well, let's make the point that it's, 2 Saturdays ago that it was suggested that he's in the running for the Hart.
Right. I mean, come on now.
Talk about fickle. Okay, before we get too far here, I want you to give our main man Lou a shout out because I want to touch on that Brendan Dillon stuff. So
yeah, there's more to discuss there. Yeah. For folks in the realty game and the realty market, if you're looking to buy a new home, looking to sell your current place, just curious about where things are at in your neighborhood, maybe another neighborhood you may be considering, whether you're looking to downsize or get something bigger, you can contact our main man Lou Ferlin from Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office at 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLEN.ca. And you can reach him at www.louferlin.ca. Helping you is what I do. That's the slogan for Lou. Don't worry about a different slogan for tonight. We've got other things to discuss.
I was going to say, I'm going to give Lou a break on the Sean Reynolds jingles.
There we go.
I'm not sure if they're working or not. Like, if they were, I'd be all over. We'll see. I may be back with more. I'm ready to hand out the home field award.
Sure.
I like this one because, again, I think that, when things start going wrong, and this is the Jets' first 3-game losing streak, a lot of people are ringing the alarm bells. They got the air sirens going on here. So there's a ton of the excuses. Here's the funny part about this is everyone who's making the excuses for the Jets out here, I think the Jets themselves would hate those excuses. Pierre Dubois was not going down the road of excuses. So I'm ready to hand out the home field today. And it comes from Robert Starr, who says the Jets complain about a game every second day. And I don't think the Jets complain about this. I think this is the fans complaining about a game every second day. This is one of the excuses that's come up over and over again. Then they get 3 days off for Christmas and come out kind of flat tonight. I mean, I think this is, if you're going to use these excuses, you can't turn your back on that excuse if you're sitting there and saying, well, the Jets have got no rest, they've got no this, they've got no that. It just feels like there's a certain segment that is moving on from one excuse to the next. I like how Robert Starr is facing up to this, saying, you know what, if you're going to use the excuse that the Jets have a tough schedule, well, then when they finally get some rest, you should fully expect them to come out firing on all cylinders. I talked to Kelly Moore on CJOB before this game started, and that was one thing I expected. I didn't think there would be a lot of feeling out for both these teams because the Jets got some rest and they need to get going to cut this off here, and B, the Minnesota Wild fell flat so hard at the beginning of the season. They tripped up at the starting line that they needed to be, phenomenal to get themselves back into the race. And they have been phenomenal. So when they get within 3 points of the Jets and they're playing a game and thinking we can pull within 1 point with the game in hand, that they're not going to come out flat in a game like that. And I do think, despite the fact I think the Jets could have got in there with some opportunistic scoring, and they had a little bit. I mean, they had a goal on their second or third shot of the game or something like that this is 3 out of their last 4 games, I believe, that they've got a goal on their first 5 or less shots of the game. I mean, they're getting the opportunities and they're putting pucks in the back of the net. But I thought if you're taking a look at the two teams here, one kind of more got to their game plan and stayed with that game plan. I thought that was the Minnesota Wild. So if you're the Jets, those 3 days off were a great opportunity for that top line to come out and just absolutely steal that game. I didn't think it happened. So that's a great comment here by Robert Starr, winning the Dig Deeper comment of this Kenny and Renny show, as sponsored by our friends at Home Field. You know what that means. You've got a car trunk shovel in your future with a nice etching on the handle of both Home Field and the K&R symbol. Congratulations, Robert Starr. You are the winner. Great job. Okay, I'm going to roll back and get to the Dylan comments. I think these are important because I think what he was touching is exactly what we've been talking about. I know that we got to this a little bit earlier, but the Winnipeg Jets came out and you could see it. It was said by Jared Spurgeon before this game, this Jets team is playing a different kind of game, right? So the Jets have come out and they've surprised a lot of teams. And you've heard it said a bunch of different ways. I remember one team came in and said, or it was a coach who came in and said, well, they're playing kind of the way that we would have expected them to play the last number of years. But one after another, teams have come in here and been like, this isn't the Winnipeg Jets that we're used to, right? It's a different team. So a lot of teams came rolling in here expecting to play the version that we saw from Paul Maurice in years past. And what they got was a very hard-hustling, defense-focused Winnipeg Jets team. And that's not what teams were expecting. And I do think the Jets caught a lot of teams off guard coming in here. To your point, they're playing backup goaltenders. A lot of teams were walking in and thinking that the Jets were going to be one of those teams fighting for a playoff spot on the bubble, not fighting to be the number one team in the Western Conference, which has been the fight that the Jets have been in for the vast majority of this season. But the jig is up. The Winnipeg Jets aren't surprising anyone anymore. I'm not saying that it's a gimmick. I'm not saying that the Winnipeg Jets have got here solely because teams didn't expect this kind of game from them. But what I am saying is exactly what we were hearing from Brendan Dillon. The Jets aren't surprising anybody anymore. Teams are coming in here knowing that there's a specific kind of game they need to play and that they need to break the Jets in the neutral zone or else the Jets gobble you up. So it's the whole idea that Rick Bowness has had since the beginning of camp. The Jets' plan is if they turn the puck over to you, they go get it back from you. Not in their own zone after you work them over and get a bunch of shots. They want to get that puck back before you even get to their blue line. It takes an aggressive style of play, and I contend, and I don't know how much of this has to do with the fact that a lot of their lineup is missing, that new players are in there, that maybe the new players that are in there aren't as good at executing that plan, or there's not as much skill in executing that plan. But the Winnipeg Jets have not been able to get to their pressure game, and I know that their head coach is saying it has to do with details. I contend it has to do with the idea that we talked about this a long time ago. The Washington Capitals come in and put up a masterpiece against the Winnipeg Jets in this building. And we said at that time, that's the blueprint. And other teams check the blueprint, and now Washington has done it to them twice. Boston did it to them to a certain degree. There's been enough teams that have had this that there's now starting to be a wide swath of video by teams that came in and had success breaking the Jets' pressure game. And that's what you saw here tonight as well from the Minnesota Wild. Again, I'm not saying the jig is up. I was interested in this question. I asked Rick Bowness, is this a matter of the Jets needing either the right personnel or just getting back to the game they were playing earlier on? Or do the Jets need to evolve and realize that teams are coming in with different game plans? They may need to tweak their game plan going forward to get back to the pressure, mainly saying that the November Winnipeg Jets, enough people know about that there may need to be a somewhat new version of that team to create the chaos that they created for teams before that. I don't know what you took away from that, Ken. I took away from that Rick Bowness didn't think that at all, that Rick Bowness thinks the plan that they played in November is still a winning plan. They're just not on it, and they need to get back.
Well, I agree with Rick, actually, totally here. I think that this is where the personnel becomes an issue. I mean, the Jets are not rolling with the same personnel. Surprise. I mean, it's when a bunch of players are either AHL call-ups or guys who are on waivers, naturally, it's a little bit more difficult to get in on the forecheck. I mean, the talent level has dipped. I mean, the effort level is not dipping. Execution and the talent level is different. So right now, then, it is a challenge.
This is a good point.
Well, the Jets are going to practice for the first time since December 3rd, I think, tomorrow when they skate. So
they haven't practiced forever, though, right? And that's the one thing. I'll say this. To your point, if it's all about getting back to where they were, if their game has been slipping and their details aren't right, it takes practice to get details right. And the Jets can't practice because they're too big. Exactly.
So, I mean, that's a problem. And people saying they should be practicing anyway. Well, no. I mean, the rest element is more important. I mean, the Jets are going to play 16 games in 30 days this month. I mean, those are facts. I mean, that's the reality of their scenario. I mean, they're going to have a break later on in the year. It's just something they need. And this is something that we do. I think the first time the Jets lost, 2 in a row to Vegas and Toronto, everyone was saying, oh, well, what's going on? Well, they had a chance to work on, they hadn't practiced much during that stretch either. They had a couple of back-to-backs in there. And lo and behold, they came back and practiced the power play. And lo and behold, the Jets got things going. I mean, I think this is just the way it works for teams. Even, the Dallas Stars went through a similar stretch too, Sean, right? I mean, when the Jets caught the Dallas Stars, the Stars weren't playing terribly. They just weren't playing as sharp as they were. The Jets passed them. Right now, the Dallas Stars are playing sharp. The Jets are not executing properly. Their special teams have dipped. And now, all of a sudden, now it's a 5-point lead for the Dallas Stars. So, I don't know. I think I understand people, coaches and other teams, or fans would love the Jets to go 82-0. That's not reality. The reality is every season generally has some tension. Right now, the Jets have some tension. They have some adversity. They've been dealing with injuries all year. For a long stretch, they were able to overcome some of that adversity. Now they've lost 3 in a row for the first time. So now, do you pull together, or does the splintering happen, Sean, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that they had an easier schedule, but I would say that in the stretch of 6 of 9, Sean, the 3 wins the Jets had in those 9 games, they're against the Ottawa Senators, Nashville Predators, and Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver had won a bunch of games, I think 5 of 6. Nashville's played a little bit better lately. Ottawa had played a little bit better in that stretch also. But those are 3 teams that are below the playoff line. So the Jets are now going to play the Vancouver Canucks, and then they're going to play the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers are, a team that some people had pegged as the best team in the Pacific this year, Sean. They're a wild card team, but they're a dangerous team, and if a team is not ready to play them, you're going to lose the hockey game because they have 2 of the best hockey players on the planet. So I don't want to, I don't think people can just say, oh, well, the Jets are going to play Vancouver now. It's an easy game for them. I mean, the NHL is a tough league, okay? It's a league that you need to be at your best most nights. Right now, the Jets are not dressing their best lineup. So I loved also what Rick said about margin for error, Sean. Injuries are absolutely a factor, but that means you need to play sharper. So then play sharper. Of course, the Jets are trying their best. I mean, that's how it goes. Mistakes are going to happen. I mean, mistakes happen at any time, especially after a 3-day break. 3-day break is the same for both teams. And you know what was tougher for the Minnesota Wild? They had to get on a plane this morning and fly to Winnipeg. But you know what? It's a 1-hour flight. So they got here and had a morning skate, and they got themselves ready to go. They were the better team. They deserved to win. Now, they're 2-0 against the Jets this year in the season series. And I do think what Marshall Patterson just said is accurate. That's why I'm saying it's important for the Jets to have tension. They have tension right now. If you don't have tension in November or December, how are you going to possibly deal with tension in March and April, or maybe June, if a team is fortunate enough to get to June, whether that's the Jets or any other team? What happened to the Tampa Bay Lightning, Sean, the year they set the record for having the best regular season? It didn't matter. They got swept in the first round of the playoffs because they had no tension during the season until the playoffs, and then it was too late.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
Let's get into Hanela quickly.
Hold on. Yeah.
Or no, sorry.
Didn't we just do Hanela? I don't know. Hold on.
Never mind. It's fine.
Okay, so I wanted to touch on something here because I think this is. I want to point this out. It's been a long time. I've said hold the fort, don't make trades. You said very early on make trades. People want it to go that way. I'm still in the situation, and I'm open to the idea that it's maybe a little bit of a different situation. I think people are making the argument when I say that last game against Washington that even though I'm saying the same caliber of players are out for either team with the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets, I think people are trying to, I think Julie Stu earlier was trying to make the argument that the Washington Capitals are a deeper team overall than the Jets. So even though it's a similar caliber of players out of the lineup for both teams, it's the Jets who are worse off because they're not as deep. So I'll go there and say, okay, the Jets, maybe they're not the Washington Capitals with the depth in their lineup. Maybe they're not the Colorado Avalanche. So maybe a different tactic has to be taken. I still think I take a look around the league, and yes, I know you all think that the Winnipeg Jets are the only team struggling with injuries in the league, but look around the league, and there's a ton of teams that are. And what do you see happening on the trade market? Nothing is happening right now. None of these teams are turning around and panicking. You know, when Crystal Tang had a stroke, the Pittsburgh Penguins aren't running out and getting a guy. John Carlson, we know now, is going to be gone for a while, and Tom Wilson hasn't been in the lineup yet this season, and neither has Backstrom and players like that. They're not running out and panicking. So that's my take. I think that the Jets need to hold firm, because I think this year, I'll say it again, this will be, in my estimation, the most important trade deadline Kevin Cheveldayoff will ever have, and I think he needs as much cap space going into that as he could possibly have. But I would say this because I think the chat room is hungry for it, Ken. What would a Jets trade right now look like? What would they have to give up, and what could they go get in this moment if yourself and the large segment of the chat room get what they want right now, and that's a trade tomorrow to fix the problems that the Winnipeg Jets are having?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible now, but the reason why I was saying it a month ago is because it's a lot easier making a trade when a team is in a position of strength.
Okay,
Jets were in a position of strength, right?
Could it have looked like that?
Well, I mean, but the problem.
Down that road.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to use 2020 vision. I mean, some teams are looking to shed some salary. I mean, some of the teams that are out of the playoffs, or starting to fade out of the playoffs. For Vancouver, that's a guy like maybe Connor Garland. I mean, does he make some sense as a Band-Aid? Yes, but there you go. Rob Mahoney. First, Ville Heinola and Chaz Lucius for Bo Horvat.
Like this trade.
I think that Bo Horvat is he should be the Jets' top target. He is precisely the type of player that they need. He's great on faceoffs. He's an offensive weapon. But you're going to have to win the bid for Bo Horvat.
Well, and to my point, to the point is, like, whether this happened a month ago, or whether this happens right now, why is Vancouver moving Bo Horvat right now? Like, this is a team that is doing better right now than both the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. Are not entirely out of it. So this is, again, to my point. Okay, so you want to go get Bo
They're
Horvat.
waiting.
You may even have to give more than this, because A, to your point, you want to get as many suitors and people at the trade deadline to get the best deal you can. But B, they haven't given up on the season yet. You are giving up on the season if you're moving Bo Horvat for a 2023 first and Ville and Chaz Lucius, because those players aren't coming in and taking over that lineup there right now. So again, this is, as much as I like this, and this is like, okay, this is the kind of package you'd have to put together to get a Bo Horvat. Maybe you could put this package together, Rob Mahoney, at the trade deadline, but it doesn't happen right now because they're not moving Bo Horvat right now. So again, I come down to this. Who is out there right now that a team would be willing to trade in this moment right now that is going to fix the Jets without moving actual bodies out of the lineup in this moment? And I don't think that trade exists. I know people want it, and they think it's easy just to say, make a trade. It's easy to scream, make a trade.
It's not easy.
Try and make a trade. It's not like this trade doesn't happen right now because they're not moving Bo Horvat right now. They may do it at the end of February. They're not doing it now.
Oh, I agreed. And like I said, I don't think they would have traded Bo Horvat a month ago either. What I was thinking was that some teams are starting to fall out of it. But here's the other problem about teams that are falling out of it. I mean, the St. Louis Blues, they went to overtime again today, right? So I talked about Barbashev. I still think Ivan Barbashev is a smart addition for the Winnipeg Jets. But the Blues are back kind of hanging around the periphery and the edges of the race. So, and the folks in Vancouver want to sell some tickets. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying,
it's okay. I mean,
does Renny the Nucks have to trade him? Yes, they do, but they don't have to trade him now.
They
not
don't
going to trade him now. So
no.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. And I mean, Brock Besser. We've talked about this. Does Brock Besser help the Jets' power play? Brock Besser is a shooter. Can he help somewhere on the power play? Sure, but you're not paying $6 million to someone who has a longer-term deal. Or at least one more year left on the deal, who A, is not a physical player, B, does not play an up-tempo type of game, C, is not really a ferocious forechecker, and D, is not an overly defensively conscientious player. And paying him the $6 million, that does not make any sense whatsoever. It's a Band-Aid solution, but it eats up your entire budget. So to me, that doesn't make any sense. Timo Meier's a guy who I've mentioned a few times now.
Okay, I've got time for that. I've got time for Timo Meier because the Sharks are a team that right now aren't in the hunt, so they could be out. Timo Meier is also extremely good friends, very good friends with Nikolai Ehlers, so it would kind of follow in the vein of what the Jets are doing right now with all those players from the Bulldogs, who they all know each other, so they're kind of bringing in people who know each other. But like I said, Timo Meier and Nick Ehlers are extremely close, so I could see something like that potentially happening, and I can see them moving him right now. Someone earlier on in the chat room said Jonathan Toews. I mean, I think right now with what B. Henderson said Toews, this is something I could see potentially happening right now if you are the Chicago Blackhawks, because they just want to tank. They're trying to tank hard for Bedard, and so the sooner you get a player like that out. But here's the question, Ken. With that salary, can they fit Jonathan Toews in right now? I don't think they can.
Well, it's 50% they would need, and then you'd have to be moving money out. So
that's $5.25 million you need to find and moving money out. So who is the player on the Jets roster? Now I know people are going to go with this right off the bat. They're going to want Neil Pionk gone, but then you're creating some issues now. A lot of people want Pionk gone, want Heinola in, and they think that that's solving the problem. I'm not sure that going that young on defense is what you're looking forward to going into a year where I think you got to throw everything into it. I guess the point of all of this is it's not necessarily easy. I will say this: top line media with Timo Meier, I think, is the one that makes the most sense to me. It just comes back to this time and time again. The Jets are going to have to give up a lot for this, and I'm open to the idea of the Jets moving a lot to get this right now, but I think Timo Meier makes sense. A, Ken, because it would be help right now. B, because the team would be willing to get rid of him. C, because it's a team that would accept futures for him. But D, it solves two problems. It solves the problem of the deficit that the Jets have in players right now, but this is also the kind of player you would really like to have in your lineup going into the playoffs. So he acts as what you're looking for in a trade deadline acquisition, but he would work right now. So of everything here, I'm glad we kind of went through this exercise. I think that this is the winning comment of something that could be pulled off, but this is the kind of player you have to think of from a team that is out of it, from a team that has guys that they need to shed, from a team that is going to be willing to accept a lot of prospects in return. That's what you're looking for. Bo Horvat is out for me because he's not capable of coming here at this time, and Jonathan Toews is hard unless you leave him right to the trade deadline, which I come back to the idea that I think everything is just too hard to do unless you make the move at the trade deadline. I think the Jets just got to gut it out. They got to stick it out. They got to get through this the same way so many other injured teams are. I know people don't like that, but I also know all the people who criticize that take of mine couldn't come up with a plausible trade if their life depended on it. So, Ken,
quick one here. Sorry, someone's mentioned Logan Couture a few times, and here's the thing. Logan Couture has a modified no-trade clause. He also has 4 years remaining on his $8 million contract at the end of this year. So it makes it appealing in one sense. You have 4 years of team control, but he's also 33 years old right now. So at the end of his contract, you're looking at a guy who got paid for being a good player for an awfully long time. I mean, Sean, we've covered series that involve Logan Couture. He would be a very good safety net for, he'd be Pierre-Luc Dubois insurance. But if you bring in Logan Couture, you may not have the money to even sign one of Mark Scheifele and Logan Couture. You could probably sign one, but you can't get the other. And here the complicated part with Meier. You would have another year of team control, but his qualifying offer is $10 million. So that's going to scare off some teams. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this year, bad mood, Blake. So it does line up with the window for the Winnipeg Jets, but unless you can sign Timo Meier to a couple of years, or maybe you even if you get the long-term deal, you do it immediately. But if you can only get him now, you don't want to just, it's more than a rental. But you only have team control for 1 year, I think, until he becomes a UFA. So it becomes risky as well. The reason why I think Horvat is interesting is that he would also be insurance for Scheifele and Dubois 2024. But you have to get the deal signed, and you're looking at north of $8 million. So if Logan Couture is going to be tough to get at $8 million for 4 more years, Bo Horvat would be similarly, but he's a younger player at the beginning of the deal. anyways. But there's all kinds of complications with anyone the Jets are going to bring in. So I mean, we'll see how things play out. But I mean, I hear you. The only issue, Sean, for the Jets waiting, and I agree, they're probably going to have to wait now, is that they run the risk if they go into a tailspin of, we talked about it. The Wild are 1 point back. The Avalanche are 2 points or 3 points back with 2 games in hand. I mean, all of a sudden, if the losing skid extends, they're in danger of being a wild card team and not a team that was at one point not long ago being first in the conference. So that was what the risk is. But Kevin Cheveldayoff also has a Vezina candidate netminder. He has a bunch of players that are playing hard, and he has a team that has put together 21 wins in the first 35 games. So I understand, like I said, if a lot of folks are not thrilled with a 3-game losing skid, if I had told them that that they were going to have 21 wins through 35 games, most people would have signed up for that. And that's not to say they can't be disappointed. I mean, it's natural for them to be disappointed because the Jets have put together an incredible stretch. They hadn't lost 3 in a row until tonight. So, I mean, that's the beauty of hockey. I mean, teams go on streaks. Sometimes teams go on skids. And how they pull themselves out of places, that's where things are at. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, the Jets have another big game on Thursday. They've responded well throughout the course of the season, but now the urgency is going to be a little bit higher. So it's a big test for them. I would expect them to be ready. And, now it's all about what they can do.
I got to say, I can't believe how many times I've agreed with Kenny's water bottle tonight. It seems like he's come around to my takes. I don't know what's going on here. Before we do go, I got to give a shout out to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union, a credit union that the two of us are both members at. Of course, they launched their new website and their new online banking tools back in November. Gave away some Moose tickets, some Jets tickets. We are so thankful for that. One of the reasons that we are big fans of the Cambrian Credit Union is the unfee account that allows us to bank for free. We save $222 per year simply by setting up a recurring direct deposit every month to our Cambrian checking or savings account. That's how we qualify. No minimum balance is required. Thank you so much to them and all they do in the community. And Ken, I wanted to save this, but I got to get this out here. I'm just going to say a comment. I want you to give me like a quick 1 minute retort, but based on
only 1 minute.
Play
oh boy.
on the ice. Well, 1 or 2, however you want. But based on
We're overtime.
A, the results on the ice, and B, what the Winnipeg Jets head coach has said about them, I think that Stenlund has passed Gus in the power rankings on the Winnipeg Jets in the minds of their coaching staff. What do you think of that?
Well, right now he's certainly passed them in terms of the fourth. Today was the third line center, and Gusson was the fourth. So I would say by the process of elimination, in terms of the overall picture, yes. I still think that David Gustafsson has, a little bit of a higher edge when it comes to the penalty kill work, though Stenlund has been used on the penalty kill as well. Right now, David Gustafsson is doing a lot of things well. He's not getting a lot going offensively. I thought he moved his feet a little bit better today, but he also had a couple of really long shifts. I think one of them was over 1:30. That's too long. I got caught a little bit out there. He's an incredibly smart player. He's starting to find his way. I think that he's still going to be an important player for the Winnipeg Jets, but he has competition, and some people in the competition are pushing him to need to be better, and I expect him to respond to the challenge, but I would say that Stenlund is definitely moving his way up the rankings. No doubt about that, but I would use pencil still. You can use a pretty thick pencil in terms of the grade of where things are at, but I wouldn't get the Sharpie out quite yet for Kevin Stenlund. But he's played well. I like the way that he's played. I think that he has a nice parts of his game. I didn't love the shot on the odd man rush. It was kind of a wrister from distance. And now, having said that, Carson Kuhlman was going to the net, and he did nearly get to the rebound, but that was a play where might have been looking for a little bit of a better option. But overall, I think Kevin Stenlund has done everything the Jets could have asked for and then some. For those He's elevated his game. So what you're supposed to do if you're a depth player, Sean, and I know I've gone more than 2 minutes, Kevin Stenlund didn't have a great camp. He had an okay camp. And when you're trying to make a new impression on a coaching staff, you need to have better than an okay camp. Just ask Jansen Harkins. Okay camp, didn't get the job done. But what Kevin Stenlund did is what Jansen Harkins did. They went down to the minors, put up some points. For Kevin Stenlund, he's coming off a knee injury, knee surgery. He needed to get his feet moving. He got his legs going. So right now, he's skating better right now than David Gustafsson. So to me, Gustafsson needs to continue to work on his feet. He's an incredibly smart player. He's doing a nice job in a lot of ways. And I think he'll continue to improve. But Stenlund is in a position, he's been here for a long time. And same as Gustafsson. When you're fighting to be a full-time player, you got to win the battle with your competition almost every single day, right? So I think that you're right, Sean, in terms of your assessment. I don't think that he's going to win the battle in a 10-game block or 12-game block, but I do think that he's making life more difficult on those who would like to stay in the lineup when the Jets forwards, if they get healthy.
No doubt. Okay, all right, time to wrap it up here. Went a little bit long. Hopefully people didn't mind. I don't think it did. Want to thank everyone for being around once again. Absolutely love having everyone along for the ride. I will give a little bit of a chastising out there to those who seem to disappear when the losses pile up. Like I've said this before, there's a noticeable difference, and I get it. I get it that some of you want to hide from, the results that happen here. It's the same as the excuses. People don't want to look at their team and think things aren't working out. I'll say this, the Winnipeg Jets still remain in second place in the Central Division. They're right in the thick of it. Go back to the beginning of the year. If someone would have told you that the first game after Christmas, the Winnipeg Jets were where they are, I guarantee you the vast majority of you would have been all over that and extremely happy to see what was happening with the Winnipeg Jets. And you know what? I love the idea of this little bit of, what I love about it, Ken, you were talking about the idea of the Jets facing adversity now versus not facing adversity, playing, having it happen in the playoffs. Adversity also leads, I think, to great conversation. And I think we had a couple of those, with the chat pitching in on who they think the trades should be made for. I like the idea of them pulling it off. If they could pull off the ultimate trade, which again I think is one that helps right now, but also acts as a trade deadline pickup. If you can't do that, I'm all in. I've said this before. This will be the most important trade deadline of Kevin Cheveldayoff's tenure with the Winnipeg Jets. They need as much money as they can pull that off for. So if it means they, get someone to take salary at this situation, they could pull it off now. I'm all for them pulling it off now. I just don't think that's possible, which is why I'm all about them saving everything up for the trade deadline. Make that point before we bounce out of here. So Ken, one more thing.
Sorry, just Beer League. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. The Jets are not losing him for nothing, so that's important to remember.
Yes. Okay. That's it. We got to get out of here, Ken. We've talked long enough. Great job tonight. Great to be back after a little bit of a Christmas break. Looking forward to it. We will give a little heads up on a couple of things. We are not going to go live after the game on New Year's Eve. We're going to save that one for the next day. Also, if you're interested, because I had 3 or 4 more people gobble up seats over Christmas, so we're starting to run out of room for the Kenny and Renny live show at TransCanada Brewing Company on the 21st. It's going to be $20 to go there, but if you ask anyone who is at the first one, if I said to you, here, pay $20 and you get your first free beer for free at TCB, and then you get to sample all the pizzas that you make and have as much of it as you want, I think you'd think that's a steal of a deal. Well, that's what's happening. $20, all the pizza you can eat, a couple of the appetizers out there, your first beer free, and then other than that, you get to hang out with Ken and I. Ken, I'm not sure if you're going to be there. I most definitely will be there, but we'll have a live viewing of the show. It's going to be great, so if you're interested in coming, either get a hold of Ken at Weeb's World, direct message him, or get a hold of me at SN Sean Reynolds, and we'll make that happen. Other than that, we want to give a shout out, like we always do at the end of the show, to our sponsors. We've said this once, we'll say it 1,000 times. If you appreciate the conversations that are happening in these spaces with shows like us, Winnipeg Sports Talk, the Illegal Curve Boys, please appreciate the sponsors that keep these conversations going. in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Furlan, Home Field, and Cambrian Credit Union. Thank you so much to them. Thank you to you all. We will see you and talk with you